team and see where we're up to. So we have in front of us, page 104, we've got items 1 through 5, and then we've now got item 6, which hopefully addresses some of the issues that have been raised. Everyone can see those on the screen. We've got a mover in Councillor Connell. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on what's in front of us now? Okay, there being none, I'll ask for a Councillor Connell.
I was just going to say that as the mover, I'm happy with the amended resolution.
Thank you so much. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Walker. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for your patience while we work through that. I think it was good to take a breath and get that through. Thanks, Eileen. Thanks, Dean. And I'm assuming, is this Ian? Ian, thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. Okay. Delegations register, page 113, and Alison's here. This is an update to fairly standard council business that we do. Alison, is there anything on the delegations register that you want to bring our attention to that's out of the ordinary, or is it pretty straightforward stuff?
Through the chair, very routine. These are matters that we noticed were a gap to fill, and other points around the Land Transfer Act are really around just ensuring staff have clarification around signing documents and ensuring that the necessary steps are attended to. So it is a bit of a tidy up, a routine matter today.
Thank you, Alison. Questions? So I've got Councillor Connell and then Councillor Rodley, please.
As per the last item, I've read this. It seems pretty standard, and I'd be happy to move that we accept it.
Thank you. Mover and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Well done, Alison. Okay. Item 2.3, amendments to the Maritime Facilities Bylaw, page 117. Thank you. Hello, Faith. Welcome. Okay. Over to you.
You need to press a button. And can I just check, have all the councillors met, Faith?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
That's it? Good.
Yeah, that's it. Put me on.
Okay, so Faith is, you're happy to take the report as read. Any questions, any discussion for Faith? We have a couple. Terry and then Peter, did you have something? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I understand what you're trying to do with COPA, etc. I looked at what you were trying, they're trying to achieve at Tyra around using the streets for parking for boat trailers and things like that. Have they been confirmed, those areas, or are they just up for suggestion?
This is not to do with
Not to do with that.
No.
Okay.
Marine.
Just the marine
Yep.
thing. Okay. Happy to carry on.
Thank you. Councillor Revel, please.
Thanks. On page 118, I just have a question regarding Schedule 2. And I think my question is reflecting what I'm hearing from local residents in Thames about their desire to have access to the wharf, which is currently separated off, as I understand, for health and safety reasons, etc., etc. So currently Schedule 2 Part A, we have number 4, Kopu Wharf and the slipway as facilities where recreational activities are prohibited, and therefore it's all fenced off and so on. I understand absolutely that when there are commercial activities taking place there, when trucks are driving out on the wharf and when craft are being hauled up the slipway, that absolutely makes sense to me. I cannot see any reason why recreational boat users shouldn't be directed to the recreational boat ramp for launching, so therefore I can't see that they would have any need for access to the slipway. But I do wonder whether it would be feasible and would be possible for the public, perhaps pedestrianised public, for the public to have access to the wharf when there is no commercial activity taking place, which is certainly going to be the case for quite some time until the whole thing builds up, and whether it would be possible for the Kopu Wharf to be removed from Part A of Schedule 2, the slipway to be there, but for public to actually be given access to the wharf to stroll out and watch the sunrise or whatever they do out at the end of wharves. And and I think that would be something that is reflected from what I hear on the Thames public. So I would be wanting to suggest that Item 4 just become the Kopu slipway, and that the Kopu Wharf not be baked into a bylaw of not having public have access to it.
I wonder if, Aileen, did you want to comment on that?
Yep, happy to comment unless Faith has something. You can correct me afterwards. How's that? So the answer is yes, always. The answer is always yes, but the implications become cost and management. So somehow that needs to be managed in a way that is consistent with health and safety and so on and so on. And here today, we're not prepared to give you that response because we haven't heard from the team about how that actually might be operationalised and what that cost might look like and how that might be paid for. So I was about to suggest a report back, another resolution to report back to council with a description of what that might look like. But that makes it a bit tricky to adopt this as it stands until we've actually done that. So but there is some urgency to get this implemented, obviously, so that we can enforce various provisions down at Kopu. So I'm kind of in your hands as to what to do next on that.
So my immediate response would be to say, well, why can't we adopt it, but just temporarily removing that bit until we get a report back, et cetera, et cetera. And the second thing I would just ask across the table to my colleagues in Thames, am I reading things correctly with regards public's general feeling about access to the wharf?
Councillor Rodley.
From what I've seen, there is a small amount of feeling around, hey, we've never been charged for this before and now we are about to be charged. And to my mind, if you're using it frequently, then it's quite a reasonable charge of 100 and something. And I would be reluctant to have people on that wharf who are sitting there fishing with their chili bins and all their stuff, and then trucks come along and then they have to move. And I know in the past over in Whitianga, I think there's been long-standing issues with people jumping off and fishing from where the boats are pulling up with their loads of sea life that they've caught. So yeah, I think I couldn't support that. I'd be happy to support something looking into it, but I wouldn't want to put a temporary thing saying they could use it until we say why they shouldn't.
And
yeah, I guess I'm not saying that either. I think what I'm saying is I like this idea. I'm I'm hearing quite a bit about people saying, why can't I go out there and walk there at sunset? Sort of thing.
I have not
Problem,
had a
sorry.
single ratepayer talk to me at the market stall in the supermarket, contact me in any way, suggesting that they would like to use the wall.
I'm
But
going to go to Gary, who's had his hand up for.
Well, I was a point of clarification, but I think Councillor Revel did it himself. I think he would be doing a wonderful gymnastics to be able to view the sunrise, but certainly the sunset at Cape Bridge he just mentioned there. So I think that was my point of clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. Just before we go to Councillor Connell, I think what Councillor Revel has done has raised and reflected what I've heard in the media and what I've heard of people on the street, and essentially that is the wonderful new facility. We've obviously contributed to funding this. Council's done a fantastic job. It's not being used a chunk of the time. The gates are locked. Why can't we go and enjoy that facility if it's not being used for commercial purposes at this time? But that then does create the issue that I think Aileen's already talked about, and we probably need a report back of the logistics of that. How do you safely manage access to that and let people use it and enjoy it, but keep people safe when it is being used for commercial activity? It is in the media. There is a lot of attention. People are asking the question, and that's what I'm hearing from people on the streets. So I would suggest that we do need to somehow find a way to get a report back to council.
So do we in fact pass this as it stands, knowing that we could have a resolution that changes part of it in 2 months' time or something like that?
It would not be my suggestion, but I'm guessing Brian's got something to say, seeing as he's parked himself up the front.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And I think we've got there. I was going to say that we're talking about a group of people that might want to go do one activity, watching sunrise. By not having those restrictions in there, it does mean that if people are going down there and fishing or swimming or other things that would be captured as recreational activity, we wouldn't have the powers. So I think you got to weigh that up about what are the things that we want to enforce, and what we probably want to do is protect that commercial part from activities like fishing and swimming, which there'll be health and safety risks and management risks. I don't think, and I know we're recorded, I don't think we'll be down there stopping people who are walking to the end. I don't know if it's restricted. Is it gated off? So that might be, yeah. So that probably does happen, yeah. So I think my concern from implementation would be the activities that you do want to stop on places like Sugarloaf, Hannaford's, Ferry Landing, and the Corporate Wharf would be one of those where we wouldn't want that recreational activity occurring.
And if I could add one more thing, and that's the funding we received from government was about enabling a commercial activity. I've seen some comments, oh, it's public funded and the public aren't allowed to use it, but the public fund was absolutely about driving the commercial activity. Also make the point that while it looks really attractive and empty at the moment, in due course, it's likely to be busy with commercial activity. Also make the point that around the country, there's many councils who wish they had separated commercial and recreational use. And I've had personal experience where there's been, people hurt by actually having those uses combined. So those would be my comments. But we can certainly report back on what it would take if it was to be available for some level of public use. And it may be there's certain times that potentially staff can have a look at.
I would appreciate that if that could be done. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if you look at Whitianga, for example, ferry landing is restricted, but the Whitianga Wharf isn't, and it's a constant cause of concern with kids jumping in, boat propellers. And I think the answer has been in the past wardens, summer wardens, to help, or ambassadors. I think what Councillor Revels has raised, I would support a report back to council if we can find a way through this. And do we need to pass this and then go back to it? Right. Go to Deli, and then Terry. Deli, you had your hand up first. Thank you.
So I'd like to support staff on this because I don't think you can mix commercial and recreational activities. Whitianga is an interesting example because it's now gated and there's a pathway, walk this way, that you're meant to go that way if you're catching the ferry. We've got a ferry and we've got jumpers as well. And bless council for actually saying, jumpers, please jump over here.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of common sense. People, if there aren't any fishing boats tied up unloading a load, people do wander to the edge and look over the side and have a yarn and stand in the commercially zoned area. But if we make it grey, then when someone is squashed between a boat and the wharf, we're in the poo. So I personally see this as very black and white. It's a commercial facility. Bylaws need to be able to enforce that. There's gnarly big equipment being used on our wharf, which is, compared to the Kopu gold-plated version, is, pretty small and manky. But the risk is there, and I personally, sorry, Peter, I don't see any room for a grey area in between.
Thank you, Deli. Terry, and then we'll try and find a pathway through this. Terry.
Yeah, I actually have to support what Deli says, and Aileen, I think this is, unfortunately, I hear what you're saying, Peter, and great, but kids do want to go and jump off the wharf and swim if there's no one around. But it does make a difference when you've got a commercial area. And I think if we start giving some latitude to this, when we get to Sugarloaf, there'll be the same issue coming up there. And I think we just keep this commercial away from the recreational. I think we'll be clear. So I support just keeping it as a commercial wharf.
So am I hearing that councillors want to support a report back to council on this topic, or just we pass this resolution as it stands, which solves the bylaw and the safety issue and leave it lie?
Should we test that?
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea. So we'll put the motion as it is at the moment. I'll make sure I get my wording right. Did we have a mover?
For the chair, we have Councillor Connell as a mover.
Mover. So seconder. Councillor Sinclair.
Just before we vote on that.
Yeah, sure.
So as I said, I'm happy to support the motion, but I'm also requesting that we have a report. So will that be a second resolution that I could put or not?
If we pass this resolution as it is at the moment, then we're not asking the Chief Executive to report back. So what I would suggest, Councillor Revel, is that we amend this and ask for a report back as item 3, and then test that separately with councillors to see if the councillors support that. How does that sound? Can we do that? Request is item 3.
I would imagine that we test the motion as it stands, which is what I've moved, and Terry has seconded. Oh, Robin has seconded. Sorry, you don't look like Terry.
Through the chair, I would agree with Councillor Connell, and we do that separately. We would do the report back separately.
Okay.
So we take this in parts.
Okay, cool. You happy with that, Councillor Revel?
Yep.
All right, let's do that. So we've got a mover and a seconder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. All right, thank you. Now, how do we address Councillor Revel's request for the Chief Executive to report back?
Yes, so I'd like to move a motion that we request the Chief Executive to report back to us on the feasibility of providing pedestrian access to the wharf.
Thank you. Do we want to get wording of that up so that we're all clear on that? Thank you. You want us to come back to that, or you just run it now?
We're just getting it ready now.
Okay. Take a breath, team, and we'll get that wording of that up on the screen now.
Through the chair, can I just make a comment while that is being done? My observations of Whitianga and the use of it is that there are many people who get a lot of enjoyment about just walking out onto the wharf, not swimming, not fishing, but just going out, having a look and wandering back. And I think if we put a fence up and stop people doing that, there would be a lot of very unhappy people. So I would support looking at a report for this.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. And can I just suggest that if we look into the future, there might be a time when we have a ferry, which is able to use that wharf. Isn't that part of what the vision was? We don't have a ferry available now, whether it's a recreational ferry going from the Hauraki heritage from the Pyro end down. But if you've got a ferry, you've got people accessing the same way that you do in Whitianga. So giving ourselves the flexibility to be able to manage pedestrian traffic might be a smart move at this stage.
I just want to comment that no, we don't have the wharf fenced off, but we do have a barrier that directs people to go access the ferry and stand there and go fishing. There isn't a physical barrier to people being at the commercial side of the wharf, but common sense prevails. But should there be an accident, so lots of people do go there. Should there be an accident, council then has the teeth or the policy behind it to support liability. So, Peter Revel falls off, drunk as a skunk, and, off the commercial side of the wharf, the liability is his, it's not ours.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Can we strike that from the record about Councillor Revel being skunk and falling off the wharf? Thank you. Have we got members of the media here? You will disregard that. Okay.
I will withhold my comment.
That
Nice and simple.
is what your motion.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
All right.
It'll come back with, well, we'd need to have a pedestrian only gate and we'd need to have a sign saying this and this is our liability and we'll know what the risks are and we can sort of say, oh, it really is a bad idea. But
thank you, Councillor Revel.
Yeah.
Seconder? Thank you, Al. Councillor Gottlieb, all those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Those against? 2 against? Carried. Thank you. Good work, team. Thank you, Councillor Revel. That's good to raise that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Faith.
Your Honour, as a Hauraki Rail Trail Charitable Trust.
I'm not
trustee,
sure
Your Honour.
I'm that honourable, but thank you for
your worshipfulness. I'm going to sit in the public forum for this
thank
item.
you for that. So can we let the record show that Councillor Rodley has removed himself from the table and is in the public gallery as a declaration of conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest as our delegate on the Hauraki Rail Trail. Thank you, Councillor Rodley. Page 123.
Speaking on behalf of Derek.
Thank you. Glenn, we'll hand to you. Anything further to add from what you've got in the report?
Through the chair, no, take the report as read, but just to quickly summarise that this is a request for effectively an inflation adjustment to the honorariums for the trustees. We're one of the settler councils for the Hauraki Rail Trust, and this adjusts their honorariums from a 2017 amount to a 2022 amount.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion on this?
Just a question.
Sure.
So the other settler councils involved, have they dealt with this matter already?
Yeah.
It does say in there, and they've approved the increases, have they?
Right.
Right. Does it say it in there? Okay.
it does.
Previously, that's been dealt with. Okay.
So we're one of a team on this.
Yes, yeah.
This and the next item as well. So yes, that's my understanding, and I think it is addressed in here. Hauraki, page 124.
1, 2, 3, end of executive summary. Sorry.
Yeah, page 123, halfway up, and page 124. Yeah. Councillor Revel, please.
Sure. Thank you. I'd like to preface my remarks by just saying that the Hauraki Rail Trail is fantastic, and the Trust does a fantastic job, and it's an absolutely outstanding asset for our district, which is terrific. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I note that we are the third cab off the rank on this, and I think we should be absolutely supporting Maramata Piako and Hauraki councils and their decision. My concern is that the way the remuneration is framed potentially sets the precedent that we are locking in remuneration increases each year related to the CPI or whatever it is. And I'm not comfortable that that is a precedent that we want to have for this, that it's yeah. So that's where I have some disquiet.
Thank you. Councillor Morrissey and then Councillor Grant, please.
Yeah, I actually hear what you're saying there, Councillor, and I totally agree. It is, it's my thoughts that the trustees are not in there for the money, or they shouldn't be. It's a thing that they believe in. I can think of a number of organisations that I believe that I belong to, where there's quite a big workload, and I receive no remuneration for it. If we, and it's a shame the other two councils have dealt with it, because I would have a different view on it. Otherwise, the remuneration it's not insignificant with the proposed increase. It becomes quite significant, actually. It really does. I'm just very uneasy about this whole proposal. I do feel trapped because the other two councils have already approved it, and it's not a good look for TCDC not to. If we were first off the rank, I wouldn't be supporting this in any way, shape, or form. In fact, yeah, that's my say.
Councillor Grant, please.
Thanks very much. I want to share the sentiments expressed by the previous two speakers and endorse those comments as well. I feel exactly the same. I also find it unusual how this has been presented to us in a paper, first of all, dealing with the increase in fees for trustees, then a second paper asking us to agree to pay an additional amount for the trustees. I would have thought it would have been more appropriate to present it as one paper, that because the two really are connected with each other. The other observation, just a question really, do we have any other committees or groups of a similar nature where the participants on those are being remunerated? It's not something that I knew was happening, so I was just a little bit surprised by it.
So I'm not aware of any, unless there are that.
No, I believe the board of the Destination Hauraki-Coromandel are paid. Can we check that?
That is correct, they are, but we don't have a representative, as I understand, of an elected member on.
No, but they are a
board.
CCO.
Yeah.
That receives an honorarium. Rebecca, please.
Yeah, I am here just to echo the comments of all of the previous speakers, and actually John Grant's comments around the unease he feels in which the way the papers were delivered. And also, I'm really would like to understand, this paper talks about no additional funding being sought by the trust because the increase in new remuneration was already factored into the long-term plan. So a decision must have been taken at some stage to rate and put those funds in here. And we are now looking at this retrospectively. I'd just like to understand the process and the two papers. It really doesn't sit well with me how they were presented. And I agree with John Morrissey. I would, if we were the first council off the rank, I wouldn't be supporting this at all.
I guess we're in a slightly unusual position in that this is the work of the trust. And part of me is struggling to understand why this is in front of us when it's the Hauraki Rail Trail Charitable Trust's job to do what's being done here, and they're not asking for extra money for us. So I'm a little confused in that area. Aileen?
I just have one clarification, and that is the two reports are on completely different trajectories. So the other report we've had, actually, we've been not sitting on it, we've been investigating it for a couple of months, whereas this one had just come in to be dealt with recently. So I think we even discussed trying to put them together in the agenda, which we haven't managed to do, but they're completely different strands of work that have ended up in the same agenda by accident.
So going back to my question, this remuneration's already been factored into the LTP. Why was that decision made, or how was that decision made, and why are we only hearing about it now? Or it may have been discussed with us during the LTP pre-work, but I'm sorry, I don't recall.
So Donna and I are just looking at each other and saying neither of us know how that's happened. I'm assuming that there's just been and I'm looking at Hayden, I'm assuming there's just been an inflation, after the bill inflation numbers applied just across the board. Yep. Okay.
Just, can I speak, please? You actually made a very good point just before, Mr. Mayor. This is not our business. This is supposed to come out of the amount of money that is allocated to that trust. They run the business. This is definitely an extra and aside, and we shouldn't be dealing with it. And I'm going to put a motion on the floor, which is option 3: do nothing. Do not approve the remuneration. I believe the trust can sort their business out. If when we deal with the next matter, it goes in their favour, the financial aspects and that. So I'm moving option 3: do nothing. Right.
Can I get some guidance on that? Thanks, Glenn.
Sorry. So just to clarify, I think there's just a point to highlight. So is that blue screen snip in the middle of the report, if you scroll to there?
Yep.
So that says that, so there's a couple of points to make here. So one is the trustees, so this is the trust settlement deed that we've signed up to as settlors. So they may be, so the end of 20.1, the remuneration must be determined on the basis of the current market rate. So the comment about sort of perpetually committing ourselves to an indexed increase, there's some discussion in the report around the relative cost of an exercise to assess what the current market rate is as an absolute amount. And so staff have just of the opinion that it's more cost effective. It'd be cheaper to give them this indexed increase rather than go and calculate what the actual market rate is. And if at some point in the future we feel like the indexing has gotten to a point where it'd be more cost effective to go and determine an absolute, like reset the benchmark for what current market rate is, somehow, and I acknowledge the messiness of 3 councils having this conversation separately, but I guess the mechanism at that point would be for us to engage a consultant to determine actual market rate, and then we'd be compliant with 20.1. And then the other is that it's the settlors who determine what the trustees are paid. So there's some budget in the LTP, but this is us formally as the settlors making the decision about what they're paid. So this is external to their business, which is the reason why it's here. But just if that clarifies some of the discussion.
Yep, thank you, Glenn. I actually hear that loud and clear. Still got a motion on the floor, though.
Can I ask how many trustees there are? Is there 3? One from each council. We've got one from our council. Okay. Councillor Rodley, can you answer that question?
So there are 3 settler trustees, and then there's 1 iwi trustee from each of 3 areas, which one position is currently unfilled.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
And the chair.
Okay, so we're talking a total of $1,488 increase over 12 months over all the settlers, all the trustees.
Sorry, what
$1,488 increase over 12 months.
Could I just comment?
No.
No.
That I guess
No.
previously we had Strat Peters on this, and we know Wati sits on this. So I think we kind of have to put aside the fact that we have a councillor sitting there. It could easily be any other member of the public, and particularly if it's an iwi appointee, it is actually appropriate to pay them, and it is appropriate to pay them at a commercial rate. So I guess I'm just encouraging we separate out the fact that we have a councillor versus it could be any person we actually nominate to put onto it, and circumstances would suggest that it's appropriate that we would pay them to do that if they're doing a piece of work for us.
So I guess the point that I was making is that we're talking, I understand the principle that's been raised here. There's no issue with that. We're either in the game and playing with the rest of the team, or we're not. If we stepping outside for a small amount of money at the moment, I think it sends the wrong signal. And it just, it says to the rest of the councils in this that, and we can make our point, but that we're not playing with the team, and that concerns me. And I think the same point's going to be raised in the next issue as well, but we'll get to that in the next paper. So I'm going to suggest that we need to move forward with this and put the resolution in.
Through the chair, we have a motion.
You got to deal with it
So,
firstly.
sorry, actually, I'll take that back. We have a mover for a motion, so we need a seconder so that we can put the motion, which is options free to do nothing.
Can I seek a point of clarification? So are we required as the representatives of the settlor here to approve this? And if we do nothing, then they will not be able to make that payment because one of the 3 have said no, or will they still have their power to be able to do this themselves?
The word in 20.1 talks about unanimous agreement, so there's definitely an issue we'd need to consider there.
Thank you. So I think by...
Could I just get a point of clarification on what the CEO just said, Lynn? So if one council was to hold back, Aileen, the other 2 would not be obligated to follow through with their decision at the council table?
Well, that was the suggestion Councillor Grant just made, and when you read that, it talks about unanimous agreement, so it definitely implies that's something we would need to look into. Yeah.
So, Councillor Morrissey, I think what it would do is send a signal to the other councils, sorry, that I wouldn't be comfortable with. So I have concerns about the resolution that or the motion that you put on the table.
There is no seconder, so it may not even happen, Your Worship. But I really do want to send a signal out there. I hear about people I heard from the CEO about people being remunerated. They have every right to be remunerated. I agree with that. But I go back to what I said at the very beginning. This is the sort of trust that people should be in because they have a belief in it and the goodwill of the district and tourism at heart. I myself, as I stated, I belong to a number of organisations where there's a bit of a commitment and I receive no remuneration. So people shouldn't be in it just for the money, so to speak. And I won't withdraw my motion. I'll keep it on the floor. If it doesn't get a second, that's great. If it does, see what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Thank you. So we'll put Councillor Morrissey's motion. Do we need wording for that? We got something?
That's fine.
Do you want to read that out?
Approves option 3, do nothing, do not approve the increase in the remuneration.
Okay, so I think we can just work with that. So we've got option 3 moved by Councillor Morrissey, seconded by Councillor Gary Percival. Can I get
Show of hands.
show of hands, please, on that? All those in favour of the motion? And 2, those against? All right.
So that motion is lost.
The motion is lost. Thank you. Gary Gottlieb,
I'm abstaining on that.
abstaining. Thank you. All right.
Lynn, in light of that, I'd like to move the recommendations as they appear in the order paper, please.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair, second. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Abstention? Do we need to call division and count the numbers on that, or are we okay? Can I get a show of hands, please, for the motion? You can't. Okay. Okay, you can. Sorry. Sorry. I'll be quiet. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Gary for that one.
Gary? For the substantive motion that we've got on page 1, 2, 3. Your vote on that, Councillor Gottlieb? He abstained on the second.
Sorry, I'm voting for that. Sorry, my microphone was off.
Yeah. So voting for that, but you abstained on the motion from Councillor Morrissey.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'm an abstention, and Your Worship, I'd just like to say I predicted that's the way it would go, but I needed to make the statement.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, thank you, team. In the order paper, does anyone need a break? We had a short break earlier on. Are we happy just to keep going? Keep going. All right.
Would it be best if we did the other Hauraki Trail thing now?
We're looking at in the order paper, because in the order paper they've been changed around.
Yeah, for the chair, I have recommended that we now move to 2.6, which is the Hauraki Rail Trail Charitable Trust request for additional funding, and that is on page 317.
So for the record, Councillor Rodley is still in the public gallery. Okay. So we're on page 317, Hauraki Rail Trail.
Who's going to speak to this?
Glenn, are you talking to this as well? Jess? Mitch? Kia ora, morning.
Morning.
Welcome. Thank you. So do you want to just give us a snapshot, or is there anything else that you want to add to this item?
Yep. We'll take the report as read. The key issue, I guess, is that the other councils have made a commitment to this funding the shortfall, and the funding agreement does require the settlers to cover deficits like this. We have done some investigations into the how these deficits came about, and and we were provided with, and that analysis is in the report. It is not entirely clear why previous surpluses have not covered the deficits, but we are in a position where the other councils have agreed to make this payment. The funding agreement requires us to do so. The analysis of the audited accounts only gets us so far, and we've put the recommendation in the report.
Thank you, Mitch. I'll open this for discussion. Terry and then Delly, please.
Thank you, Mitch. Look, I've read this report with some interest. Diane Drummond's a real trooper when she went to Wellington after the floods and things and got a couple of $1 million or some big numbers, and I don't see it showing in the spreadsheet. But I was surprised to see that you'd made some money, year before and the year before, but this year struggled. So I would have thought there'd be enough reserves in there to manage us through to the next stage. 27K is not a big number when you look at their numbers in there, but I was a bit concerned not to see that funding model that came out of Wellington in there. But interested in any comments, but that's why it's
possible that's due to timing. These accounts are from July 2019 to June 2023, so I'm not entirely sure. We requested this level of information to support the analysis to understand a little bit more, and I understand that the finance team had a look at this. So yeah, that's probably the only thing we could comment on there.
Some of the expenses of the trust are bundled together in their financial reporting, and so you, without really taking a much closer look at their books, you can't determine, although Donna's.
Well, I'll ask Donna for a comment on that, please.
Through the chair, so the finance team did they asked for a lot more information broken down, did an analysis of that information as well. But at the end of the day, the split between, unless we were asking them to go right down to the GL level, we weren't able to substantiate whether they had the proportional strategic split correctly. However, despite all that, Thames-Coromandel District Council signed a trust agreement, which has a clause 10.10b in the clause that says where the trust cannot generate sufficient funds to cover its operating costs, each of the settler councils agree that it shall contribute to the shortfall in funding on the following basis. Strategic and overhead costs are to be apportioned equally between the settler councils. So when finance had a look at it, and then we had a look at the clauses in the trust deed, the recommendation from us was that council had an obligation to pay.
It's bad.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. So I have John Morrissey, then I've got Terry and Delly, and then Robin. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Donna. That's a big hole that this council could fall into at any stage. So there's no limit to the debt that we could be held responsible for after hearing that. I wasn't able to determine, because I'm not a financial whiz, but what is in their bank balance at the moment? How fluid are they? Donna, was that did that come through?
Sorry, I'm just trying to quickly have a look in the report. So there is an attachment that was on the agenda that has the financial statements and things in there.
There's a financial thing there, but bottom line is what's in the bank? It's what is their financial position?
That's all.
I'll continue on while we ask that,
no
while you look at that. I'm really concerned about this, to be honest with you. There's not enough information in there that makes me comfortable in approving that increase. When they have profitable years, we don't get a profit share out of that. But when there's a bit of a hole, well, then that's up to us to fill. And it's not a good deal from my point of view. I myself would need I don't know what I'd need to approve that. It's only $27,000, but it comes out of that golden bucket of ours retained earnings, which is, it is not bottomless, eh? So I'm very uncomfortable with it. And I guess we're in the same position with the other councils. If two councils say yes and one council says no, then it's a no all round. And so I'd assume that's the same position. I am going to move that, yes, we've been here before, that we do not approve the funding increase, that it stays as it is. And until we get, I need more information, Terry, to be comfortable. So I'll put that motion on the floor.
We have a balance sheet. We've got P&L, but there's no balance sheet.
I'm just asking our finance person if they can send that to me so I can have a look. Thank you.
So can I just comment, as staff, this report's gone round and round and round internally as we've tried to work out how to deal with it. There's been a lot of hours go in the finance team. I'd hesitate to even ask Donna how many hours. I think the challenge for us is what we're saying to you is that we are bound, we've signed up to this, and rightly or wrongly, and probably before many of your times, the council is obligated to pay this. It won't matter how much extra investment we make in the back room, having a look at the financials, that's probably not going to change. So our advice in this report is that we've just got to do this. You can send us away to have a look at the financials, and that'll chew up more financial staff time looking into it. But at the end of the day, we've got to pay it.
Okay.
I'd ask Donna, though, for advice that given we're in this hole now, what can we do differently going forward to make sure we're not in this position again, which would seem to be a more productive kind of use of our time.
Councillor Morrissey.
I totally hear that, but
I've got a whole list of people that
just a
Can we
point.
come back to you on that?
Oh, okay.
I'll come back to you. I promise I will. Terry, please, and then Delhi.
Well, my statement's along with John saying I'm just not happy with the financials when I understand that they've actually had some big money come through from the government for fixing up, which I don't see in there. So why can't we have more accurate financials? That's the key that I'm asking.
I think Aileen's just addressed that. Do you want to have anything?
If I could address the big numbers, government's very good at handing out CapEx. And so those are undoubtedly CapEx budgets that fund all sorts of things, but not OpEx. What we're talking about here is the overarching operations of the trust. And those are the costs that trusts find really hard to fund.
Thank you. Delhi, please.
Is there an opportunity here, and I hear what you say, Aileen, about the contract that we have, to go option 3, which is to pay part of, I mean, there won't be a great big difference, but just thinking of area of benefit, sending a message that we're not happy with the financials. In the report, it says there could be an argument that inspection costs and lease administration Kiwi Rail could be considered proportional costs and allocated accordingly to TCDC at 18%. So I wonder if because I hear what John's saying, John M, whether we can pull that card and say that we have some reservations about this. We realise that we're not fulfilling an obligation, but we also have concerns about the management of their funds. And at this stage, it could be an interim, we will pay the 18%, but not that third proportion.
Thank you, Councillor. Rika? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. I've just crossed you off and I shouldn't have done that.
Thanks, Len. Should John Morrissey be lucky enough to receive a seconder for his motion, I will be voting against this. As somebody who lives in the ward that has the only piece of the Hauraki rail trail, I can say that it's very important to the people who live here. It is also very important to our tourism, and that I know of quite a few people who have travelled here and businesses that have benefited from people travelling here to do this. So I think that part of the issue that I'm seeing around the table here is that the councillors have limited visibility about what the trust is doing and the good work that's going in. And Diane Drummond has understandably had rather a large number of things to do recently, and so hasn't been in front of us as often as she was last term. So I look at this, it's a very small amount of money for the benefit that it provides to the social wellbeing of our people in this ward and across the district, also to the economic wellbeing of the businesses in this ward. And my challenge to the councillors going forward would be to take a greater interest in this and to ask for more information going forward about a whole range of things, users, economic benefit, et cetera, because that is the problem that I'm seeing here. Not that they need money, but that we can't see the value of what they're asking for.
Thank you, Robin.
When John Morris, should John Morrissey's motion fail, I would like to follow that up immediately with moving the recommendations that are in the agenda.
Okay. Well said. Well said. And I think you made some really good points. Rika, please.
May I ask the question, in the LTP, what is the figure that we give to this charitable trust every year or every 3 years?
Need to look to Hayden or Donna for that one.
211,000
every year?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems like we're asking for a small and insignificant sum, but there is a huge sum there. Robin, you raise a really, really good point, and I wonder whether the Thames Community Board would like to pick up the shortfall here and cover that cost in this instant. That's just a question that I'm going to put out there. But I also would just like to say, going forward, council needs to be really, really careful how we enter into these agreements. Our ratepayers are facing an average 13.5% rate increase, and we can't just keep going back, dipping into the golden pot, as Councillor Morrissey called it. This isn't an endless supply of money. So as we enter into these agreements no, I don't think anyone's disputing this is a really, really good thing. We just cannot keep coming back and tapping the ratepayer for more money. So we really need to get commercial when we sign up to these agreements. And I absolutely insist that we get a better understanding of the financials in this case. And is this just a one-off, or have we been here last year asking for more money, and the year before that, and the year before that? I really want to understand that full picture. So that's my...
To your point, Rika, I'm not empowered by my community board to make a decision on their behalf about funding this, but the agreement is not between the Hauraki Rail Trail and the Settler Community Board. It is between the Hauraki Rail Trail and the Settler Council. So
I just brought that up because you talked about the huge amount of benefit for that ward.
Thank you. Mitch, did you have, or Jess, sorry.
Just in response to that, around whether or not we've been here before, I'm uncertain, but I know that this is a one-off request to cover the deficit between 2019 and presumably now, or 2023. So that is the one-off that we're looking at covering for that period of time.
Thank you, Jess. And I'd just like to comment in response to what Councillor Gary Percival has said. There is a wider discussion here that goes to tourism amenities that we've had already as this council, and we will continue to have about, and the government's already raised this, about the user pays concept, about how we cover the costs of these amenities, whether it's Cathedral Cove or the rail trail or the Tairua Trail or anything in the Coromandel area. We've made a submission to the government on the visitor levies, proposing that it goes from $35 to $100. And the intention is that that we get support, which is not the ratepayers, in these economic activities. So we are.
You promised me one.
Yes, I promised you. Yes. Go ahead.
You did.
I did.
Yeah, I heard what the CEO said about the money that comes from government is probably used for the CapEx works, which is great. But of course, then there'll be depreciation that probably comes back and is funded by us. But anyway, hey, listen, I don't think we can even make a decision on this today, councillors, without actually getting a bank statement. That's all it would take from this trust to see what the money they have got, that it is in fact justified, that we're making a good decision here today with all the information we could have, because we haven't got that information. It would not be hard to get a bank balance. It should have been provided here today. These financials great, but just a bank balance. So I don't believe we can make a decision today on this matter. I still have my motion on the floor, which in the unlikely event I get a seconder. Thank you, Terry. I'm happy to just put out there anyway, because okay, Terry, I'm just going to play with words a little bit here, but my motion would be that we do not fund today the amount requested, and then number two, or to review hang on, yeah, and pending more financial information being provided by Hauraki District, the Hauraki Rail Trail. So can you put that together for me?
Donna, did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
Just through the chair, I'd just like to say that one of our finance team members has scrutinised the accounts in detail going back from everything that's been provided. And as I said before, apart from us requesting and asking to look at their accounts by GL level, which isn't really appropriate, there's probably isn't a heck of a lot more that we can do from a financial perspective. We've put a lot of time and a lot of hours into this.
Don, I don't want you and your team doing anything. I just want last month's bank statement from this trust to show me how many dollars they've got in the bank.
I guess the thing with the bank statement is it'll show their cash position at a point in time, and the request is for deficits over 3 years, and the cash flow will vary throughout the year depending on like the period in their financial calendar. So the costs they asking to cover have already been spent. So I guess that's just one consideration.
I hear you, Mitch, but if they've got $500,000 in the bank that I'm unaware of, that's all I want to know is what is their cash
I'm
situation?
concerned that would provide a piece of information which is not safe and robust piece of information that this council should be making decisions on. It's a point in time. It's not anything more than that, and it doesn't give us a financial picture that we can make decisions on. What I'm concerned about here is that we are a partner in this. We've signed up to this, whether it's historical, rightly or wrongly. If we want to renegotiate our position in the Hauraki Rail Trust, then we need to formally take that back to the other councils and say, hey guys, we want to renegotiate the terms of this. And we've got councillors with concerns. But as of today, we are obligated under the terms of the agreement to support this. And then I think we can have another discussion, are we in or out of the trust? And then that's another discussion that has quite significant implications, but it's not a discussion for today. I think today we have an obligation under the terms of this trust to support this. And if we don't, then we're sending a very, very strong signal to the other partners in the Hauraki Rail Trail that we're not happy and we want to go back to the table. It's a very big discussion to have. Terry.
Look, we're in no way saying that Trust is not doing a good job. What we're asking for is clear financial statements so we understand their position. We know there's been money being provided. We know there's been things going on, but I went through those numbers and I couldn't feel that I had a clear understanding of their issue. And that's what we're asking for. We should be entitled to do that for our ratepayers to show we're being prudent about what we do with our money.
So I hear what you're saying. We've had advice from the staff about the ability or the work that they've done on analysing that. Are we accepting that advice as it stands at the moment and making a decision on this, or are we saying we want to park this because I think there's significant implications for that? Deli.
I think we have two motions here, and I think they need to be tested. We've heard the advice, and I think we've had a pretty robust conversation. I don't know what the policy is, whether or not the one in the paper, option one that councillor Sinclair would like to move, I think.
Yeah,
So we've
yeah,
got
through the
let
chair,
councillor Morrissey do his and then have a go at that
yeah.
second one. Okay,
Yeah,
sweet.
he
Let's
moved
do
his
that.
straight off.
Can I just suggest perhaps to clarify the position, because I am hearing various sort of views that conflict. So rather than use the words that we do not approve, that we delay the decision in regard to the support for that payment pending further information in regard to the financials.
I'd be happy to take that as an amendment.
I'd support that.
I'd be requesting what do you mean by further information, such that when we leave here, Donna knows exactly what it is that we're going away to look for or do.
To me, the further information is around the current is around the profitability of the Hauraki Rail Trail by year, because I've seen those numbers within that report. They all indicate negatives, but then I hear that they're carrying a profit in a particular year. So I find that confusing trying to read that. So I'd like to see that clarified. And I'd also like to just understand their trading position, I think, as well, in regard to the ongoing profitability, just to understand from a governance perspective what risks we really have here.
I just make a brief comment. It's Gary here. Isn't this just to cover what happened during the COVID time where they didn't have people coming and everything just stopped? It's a one-off to cover that. It's not really for the 23-24 financial year, which just is to pay for what's happened in the past. Am I right or wrong?
Councillor Gottlieb, if you have a look on page 318, halfway down the page, there is a list of 4 examples of the events that have contributed to the cost increases. And my understanding is that there's been also some concerns around the WRC work on stop banks, which, and they haven't got the timing of their WRC go and do some improvement work on the stop banks, which affects the rail trail, and then the rail trail have got to come along behind them and fix it up at their cost. And there's been some discussion with WRC around, hey guys, this is costing us money. Can we get the timing of this right? But I don't know the details of that. I don't know whether Councillor Rodley can fill in that picture anymore.
Yeah, just one comment. When I had the thing come up on the screen, I can't view my my agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay.
Donna, have you got some more information on that can help?
Yeah, so through the chair, I've just been sent the balance sheet, and it is as at 30th of June 23. So whilst when you're looking at a balance sheet, whilst it's the bank account and cash looks quite healthy, you've got to take into consideration obviously their debtors, their creditors, and also a huge portion of that is income in advance, because that would mean that when we pay them, or when the 3 settlors pay them, that money has to be retained for their operations over the next 12 months. So basically then when you take their total current assets and their total current liabilities, their net assets are around about 33,000. Same as ours.
Okay, so let's move on with this. We've got the motion from Councillor Morrissey. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll be clear that I'm not going to support this, but let's put the motion. Could I get those in favour of, do you want to take it one at a time or both together?
I was just concerned about the wording that was in there to delay the decision. Are we happy with that? Happy with that, John? Okay.
Okay. Sorry, before we move forward, can I just ask our Chief Executive, are we clear on the potential implications of a delayed decision? Do we need to get some more input on that and what effect that might have?
Reputational is probably about it, but staff have delayed this decision several months anyway while we've been trying to work out things in the background. So another 6 weeks won't be of any consequence other than reputational and whatever's reported in the media today.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the vote. All those in favour? Those against?
I'm against.
Okay. Can we get numbers on that, please? I'm against it. Thank you. All right. So that is lost. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And use this casting vote.
Yep. That wasn't a casting vote.
No,
That was just
casting vote.
No, that was just me voting.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a casting vote.
So I've got a motion which is seconded by Councillor Revel.
Thank you. So we're back to the substantive motion, which has been
As it reads in the agenda packet, that we receive the report and approve the funding.
moved by Councillor Sinclair, seconded by Councillor Revel. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And myself.
And Gary, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are those against? 1, 2, 3. That is carried. Thank you, team. Abstain. And thank you for your robust discussion. And, you know, this is councillors doing their job, just asking the hard questions. We got there. Thank you. So Councillor Rodley is, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Mitch. Councillor Rodley is returning to the table. Yeah, I do too. Yeah. New parking bylaws, be still my beating heart. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Sorry, I'll shut up now. And no disrespect whatsoever to Sian, to Leslie, to Ed. Thank you.
This is Emma.
Emma, I'm sorry.
Nā koe koutou.
Who's Sian? Where's Sian?
We're back at 2.5, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. All right. So thank you. I'll stop talking and hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So before you have a report recommending that you seek public consultation on an amended traffic bylaw. This is one of the pieces of work that have been floating around the traps for a while. You'll see that the last time you discussed this was back in 2022, where the council determined to make some amendments to the bylaw. This is one of those bylaws that isn't captured by the review periods under the Local Government Act. Rather, it's made under the Land Transport Act. So while it doesn't impose any review timeframes on council, it is best practice to revisit these documents occasionally just to make sure that they're fit for purpose, to make sure that any amendments are made based on how it's being observed working in the community. So staff have identified some changes. They are there in the report for you. So the next step is for the public to have their say on the changes.
Thank you, Emma. Leslie, anything to add?
Nothing from me, except to say that there are a number of additional restrictions that we're proposing. As you can see, there are over 400 restrictions on one-way roads. So what we're doing is a bit of a catch-up with this bylaw. In future, we think that we would be bringing these amendments as time goes on, as they're needed. So the bylaw doesn't get reviewed, but there will be change over time.
Thank you.
Once you've done this amended bylaw.
Thank you. Ed, anything?
Through the chair, one of the things you may have noticed is the large number of one-way streets. This is because in the past we've not recognised the fact that where a central median has been placed in a development, this effectively creates two one-way streets, one either side of the central median. The remainder of it is basically, as Leslie says, catching up on what has been missed in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to discussion. Deli first, and then Terry, please.
I did read this report, and it seems pretty straightforward. But I don't remember what was the consultation dates for the public input.
So we propose to align it with the parking bylaw, which you'll be discussing later on in the report. The two subject matter seems to work together nicely. So we are proposing that we go out on the 9th, which is this Friday, with feedback closing the 9th of the September. Promptly.
Thank you. We've got Terry and then Rekha and then Martin, please.
Yeah, I just, it looks like a lot of common sense going on here, so well done. I just note the council's not consulting on whether it should or not make the bylaw. I think that should be clear. It's actually telling the people what the changes are about. I think it's not about whether they want it or not. It's about what's going on. So if that's made clear in the communication, I think, yeah, it's fine. Good.
Thank you. Rekha, please.
Just a specific question around the Whangapoa Wharf and Whangapoa Road. And the fees at those locations, is that already in place and this bylaw is just catching up? You talk about it in the comms plan. Through the chair. Ahead. Sorry, yes. Yeah.
Not charging fees for stopping.
Councillor Rebel, please.
A riveting read. I got to the end of it and I just thought, do we have to consult on it? And because it just seems sensible. And secondly, are we expecting some divisive comments? Are we expecting negative feedback from the community? And are there things in this that you would think the community might not like that?
That was just a.
Oops. That's not a good omen.
Okay. Is that an omen? Yeah, are there things in there that you kind of think, it's going to be interesting to see the feedback there? I was just trying to get, how's the public going to respond? So lots of questions there. Do we have to consult?
So to answer the first point of your question, do we need to consult? We're following the requirements of consultation under Section 82 of the Local Government Act, which isn't a full-blown special consultative procedure. So we don't need to go through all of the different steps that a more formal process would require us to. But we are recommending that council does touch base with the community on this issue, because it has been a long time since we've had this discussion. It makes sense to have this discussion alongside the parking bylaw. And also we had a little note when we passed the restriction on the 309 under urgency after the cyclone, that we would let the community know through this process that we would be, I guess, just formalising that in the bylaw. So that's where the recommendation.
More about informing than consulting, isn't it?
Yes, so that specific part was informing, yes, because that's been well and truly signed off.
Martin, and then Delhi.
Hang on,
Is this-
sorry.
and the other bits.
So as to what the community might be interested in submitting, that's a bit of a crystal ball question, because sometimes issues do pop up.
Sure.
But for what we're proposing, there's nothing that's going to actually change on the ground. It's more about formalising what's currently in place, and we're going to be, I guess, extra careful with the comms around that, because, as Ed mentioned, the 400 new one-way roads could look a bit scary, and so we're going to be just reiterating that it's we're not actually changing anything. It's
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Martin.
So I'm just sort of interesting timing wise, and I spoke to Leslie about this yesterday. I think we have a number of community board meetings between now and when the consultation closes. Are the community boards going to be specifically asked or shown this, and are the community boards going to be asked to submit on the, I'm hoping only submit on the changes, because the whole point is not to look at all the existing stuff at this stage. But I would just be concerned that community boards get to have a bit of a go, and then I would also be concerned about what level of submission would be required, or support, or number of people in the community about a particular thing for it to then be potentially looked at or altered.
So through the chair, we did do a round of community board meetings in 2022 when we first reviewed the bylaw. We didn't get a lot of feedback from them. We're not proposing to go to do another round through the community boards. As we've been saying, this is really just regularizing what's on the ground already. So, but community boards would be absolutely free to submit if they so wished.
I would just think that in 2022, there's a whole new set of community board members now than there was in 2022.
Okay, we'll go to Delhi. Are you okay that that's been addressed and answered? Thank you, Delhi.
I think a community board doing its due diligence, if anything like that, where there is public involvement, will encourage, if people want to come and speak at a community board meeting, and that we pass on any feedback directly from the council. But you have got a robust process in place. I was just going to say I'm happy with the report. I can't see any fish hooks, and the consultation's happening on Friday. I'd like to move that we approve and get on with life.
Yeah. I just got a quick comment.
Quick one, Terry, and then we'll.
Yeah, we'll move it. I want to move it too, but I just make a comment on page 348 where it says in the third paragraph, those minor changes will have no effect on anyone of whom the bylaw applies. So you're just telling us really that it's just you're putting it out there in a new format, but it's very much the same as the last one with some minor tweaks that won't really affect people's lives.
You're talking.
Yes, again. Have I gone to the park?
I think that maybe is in the order that it's on our PDF.
Sorry, okay.
And
We've jumped forward.
It's gotten slightly out of.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, sorry, understand.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Kia ora. Just before we move to moving, which I was sensing was imminent, we just staff wanted to table a minor change to the bylaw. We have on page 158 of the agenda proposed to strike out the signature block of the bylaw. We would like to retain that, so it is not even really in the bylaw itself. It was very administrative, and we would like to keep that for the consultation version, please.
Page 158, can you be specific about which?
Signed on behalf of.
Oh, yeah.
It's not numbered, sorry.
I'm still not clear. What are we doing?
So
Yeah.
this needs to remain, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So it's been
struck
struck out, but it needs to
Struck
remain.
out.
Unstruck. Okay. Right.
So I'd like to move that motion, noting that the struck out bit is unstruck. Is there a seconder?
That a word. Councillor Grant, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you, carried.
And now where are we going?
Thanks, team.
Where are we going?
332.
3.
So just team, so that we're on the same page, I'm going to propose that we look at item page 332, item 2.7, parking bylaws, and then once we've dealt with that we have our lunch break.
Okay.
Right.
Right. Here we go.
Be here for both.
For both that and the granny flats. The granny flats one might need some time and discussion because the councillors want to have some input into this. So Sian's online. Hi, Sian.
Hello.
Okay. So welcome everybody. We'll just hand straight to you and crack into it.
Thank you very much, elected members. Apologies, I can't be with you in person today. But similar to what you've just heard on the traffic control bylaw, this parking bylaw is one made primarily under the land transport legislation that doesn't have mandatory review periods. However, there are a few ambiguities in the current bylaw that we decided we would review it and have a good look at it, and found some things in it that we thought we could improve quite drastically, and also reformat and restructure the bylaw in a better way to make things clearer. So we're proposing that we do actually do a whole new bylaw for our parking management. In doing so, and again, I picked up on a comment one of the members made in the earlier discussion about the traffic control bylaw. In the consultation proposal document, we have attempted to make it very clear to members of the public that we're not consulting on whether or not to have a bylaw, but we're consulting on the fact that we are wanting to remake it in a different format. So it's more about informing the public about the fact the bylaw is going to look different from what it currently does. In addition, there are some proposed new parking restrictions that are going to be consulted on as well. Most of them are relatively straightforward. The one change that I think, again, picking up on a comment that another member made in the previous discussion, that is going to be of probably most interest to members of the public are the changes around boat trailer parking. We're proposing a rather administrative but important change to the way that boat trailer parking is recorded as a restriction and using the technique of a zone, which is a lot more straightforward to do for those kinds of restrictions. But there is also a proposal to add some new boat trailer parking spaces that do not currently exist, and it is likely that those proposals will have some interest in the communities in which those areas are proposed. Other than those two key points, which again, just picking up on anticipation of what elected members might want to ask, given the previous discussion, I will sit back and wait for any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Sian. Anything to add?
Yes,
on the-
comment.
hang on, Terry. We'll just make sure. Anything to add from the team?
Nothing from me at this point, thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll open it for discussion. Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the work being done on this, and I can understand where you're going with it. You are opening up some areas around Tyrol, which is a big issue with parking and trailer parking for boats. Are they been considered, or are they been putting in place?
Yes, those are being consulted on. Those are not currently in place.
Okay. The other one that's been raised, you most have had some information around Kotuku and Whangamata, that there's very, very little space for parking trailers there. Is that up for discussion?
I'm not familiar with that location. Could you say it again?
Kotuku. It's a boat launching area on Otahu Estuary. It's the second one in the Whangamata ward that where boats are permitted to launch. But there's no parking at all around the area, so we're just raising that as an issue to look in when you go through that.
Yeah, I don't think that's in our list of proposals, but if someone else wants to respond to that. Eric?
Sorry to just push you, but thank you. Go ahead.
I understand it is there just as an option for consideration. I know there is limited parking at that site.
Right.
I'm going to ask a rude question here, and I should know. Leslie, Ed, could you introduce this handsome gentleman here, because we haven't met? I'm sorry.
Oh, my apologies, yeah.
I'm Eric Hamilton. I'm filling the role of Coastal Facilities Officer, looking after wharves and boat ramps.
Thank you, Eric. And had any. Sorry.
And Eric isn't doing himself justice there. He's actually, along with Jim Darm, the father of Coast Care in New Zealand. And we knew each other, 30 years ago, doing Coast Care activities down in the Bay of Plenty.
And thank you. And it's a pleasure to meet you. He's obviously as tough as old nails, because it was 2 degrees this morning and you're wearing shorts. So you're in the right job. So thank you. All right, Terry, does that answer your question?
He's given an option, so I presume we'll discuss that for sure. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we may just check that at the break. I don't believe Kotuku has paid parking and doesn't have designated zones, and it's not something specific that we are requesting in the bylaw. So I also haven't seen, I guess, from a compliance perspective, an issue there. So we can.
Rebecca, please.
Yes, so my comment from earlier really related to the parking around the wharf and on Whangapoa Road. And we're talking about fees will apply in these locations. I thought that paid parking was already in place. Is this just catching up with, is this bylaw just catching up with what's in place, or am I mistaken?
My understanding is there is a limited area for paid parking at Whangapoa, and this is extending it to catch a wider area where there is trailer parking.
Right. So that's increasing the parking there.
Yes.
Perfect. My second question, and it really relates to Cathedral Cove, Grange Road in Hauraki. Now, I understand that that piece of land sits with DOC. We have done a lot in the past to work and appease the neighbours in terms of the volume of traffic that was originally going up there. So if we're removing the parking restrictions, are we having joined up conversations with DOC so that the neighbours, I don't know whether they can imply the same sorts of restrictions, but so that the neighbours aren't sort of upset and cross that volume of traffic will increase again. I understand the top car park will be closed even when Cathedral Cove opens. It's just that we've done a lot of good work there, and it would be really sad to see it all undone.
Through the chair, I have been speaking with DOC about Cathedral Cove. We know that it will be shut. The problem is that we cannot designate a road purely as residence parking, not without specific bylaw. So this parking bylaw wouldn't be able to provide that residence parking that I understand the locals want. The hope is that once people realise that the Cathedral Cove car park has been shut, that people will not try and access that road.
Shirley?
And that's, I also note there's something about tu tari tari as well, which is, it's all a bit of a break, and that's a no stopping regulation. So it's, what's the difference between a no stopping and a no parking? Yeah, but I'm just thinking people dropping off and, you know, if they're dropping people off and still wanting to access. Yeah, I was just a bit confused about that. I was over there the other day and there is a lot of congestion. It's quite a narrow sort of area.
Yes, the idea behind that is to, because it is a narrow area, there is a problem with access for refuse vehicles going up that road. So the idea there is that we prevent parking or basically any form of vehicle stopping on that road to enable access for not only refuse vehicles, but also emergency vehicles if they're needed.
Ed, could you confirm is no stopping yellow lines? That will be what will be marked.
That would be what would be installed, yes.
So, Councillor Connell, the no parking, no stopping is the same thing.
Good mate, we all know who that is as a paramedic for St John's, would be very happy to hear that. But also I think a lot of frustrated residents would support not having parts of their driveway blocked and the general mayhem.
Thank you. I've got Martin and then Peter, please.
Yeah, just with the existing, and I realise this is about new ones and not existing ones, but I wondered if it was possible to ask a question about the current P120s in Thames have got a day and time restriction. Well, for when it applies, so it's Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is that just historic? Is there a reason we don't have that 120 restriction on Saturday and Sunday or outside those hours?
The reason for the restriction is to enable the businesses in the area to operate basically during the normal working week, if you like. The idea is that people can travel into Thames, park near to the shops they want to get to, do their shopping and leave, and that the parking spaces then become available for people at a future date, you know, later on during the day. That's to stop people basically parking there all day, preventing access to the shops. During the weekend, the volume of traffic is not as high. So the anticipation of a need for a 120-minute restriction isn't required.
Thank you. Peter, please.
Thanks. And just related to that, so just with regards parking around Thames, and it's probably a general question and not specifically related to this, but I have a sense that the parking restrictions that we have are not being policed, and you don't have to go very far to find somebody parked in a 120-minute parking spot who've actually parked there all day. And I know of somebody who parks at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 o'clock at night they pick up their car and go, and they're parked in a 120. That's both in Pollen Street and in Mary Street. So I'm concerned that we have these bylaws, but we actually don't police them and enact them. And my second comment relates to Thames because of the shortage of on-street parking between like 10 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just feel that we are really conservative when it comes to allocating where we can allocate parking spaces. And if I'm correct, when I look at the bowling park over here, there's some big yellow lines, you know, do not park here. And for the life of me, I can't see why we would be restricting somebody from parking in that particular spot, and et cetera. And I have this general impression when I look along here in Rolleston, Mackey Street, that, we've got no parking in places where you could actually comfortably, in my view, stick another car. So, my challenge is, are we just being really, really, really super conservative in the way we go about allocating no parking areas?
Pete, can I just tell you that I got a grumpy call from a local constituent who got a ticket and got a ticket after parking in the same place week on, week off, suddenly got a ticket. And I questioned, this is a while ago, questioned Brian, and there is a cyclical aspect to this, but I don't know the details. But yes, we do issue tickets from time to time.
Your Worship, I'll just clarify that. So we've patrolled Thames in particular 49 times in the last 12 months, checked 2,963 vehicles and issued 93 infringements. The compliance rate is pretty high, which is saying we might not get everything, but we're certainly out on a weekly basis. We can have a conversation if we want to increase the level of service around parking compliance, but we've tried to take a once a week type of approach to our main centres.
We love you, Brian, for those.
Can I ask a supplementary question to that? Do we also monitor the boats that are parked up at Shortland Wharf and are supposed to be paying $10 a day?
Be careful.
Donna just said it's not our wharf, so the answer is probably no.
Rika.
As a side note, that's really interesting what Brian just shared there, and it might be of value to get some of this updating to, updates to community boards about what's happening within the wards. Yeah. I feel like we had that at some stage, but I feel like I haven't seen or heard a report like that for a while.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we used to come on a pre and post summer in particular, and that probably fell away slightly after COVID, but we could easily bring that back. It was more of a workshop.
Yeah, it was just really good to have that level of understanding around the compliance side and what was happening.
I'm sure Tamil and Alice will love to do that leading into this summer. So.
Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Delhi?
Again, I'd be happy to move this, but just a quick comment. We have a problem in Mercury Bay that kind of is cyclical as well, where if it's going to be someone who's there from first thing in the morning till 5, quite often they're a business owner. And what they're actually doing is driving away the customers that can come to their business. So there is an opportunity to educate business owners on parking well away from where customers want to access business.
Eric, go ahead.
Can I just confirm at Kotuku, there is no paid parking, boat ramp, trailer parking there, and it is a free access parking, yes.
We're not proposing to change it. Yeah.
No.
We're not proposing to change what's there already. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think Councillor Connell was happy to move. We're on page.
Just through the chair, Your Worship, similar to with the previous item, before members make their votes on the motion, I just would like to draw to your attention a couple of very minor changes in the consultation proposal document. So on page 356 of your agenda packet, which is page 10 of the proposal document, there's a piece of text there about privacy, and I just wanted to inform elected members that that wording of that privacy notice has been updated to align with the current requirements from the Office of the Privacy Commissioner. So just to let you know, that text will be different in the final version. And a couple of pages after that, on the online survey questions that I have it on page 395 of the agenda packet, if that's correct, is the draft online survey questions, just to let you know that if you go and have a look at the survey once it goes live, the formatting obviously is a little bit different to then just having it written out in a Word document like it is in your attachment. And there's also some interesting ways that survey questions can be formatted to just make the flow of the questions a lot easier for people to follow and understand, and give them better options for how they answer that, again, are very difficult to replicate in that Word document. So just so that members don't think that when they go and have a look at the survey when it goes live that it's going to look exactly like what is in that Word document there. I just wanted members to be aware of those two matters before you go to vote. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Sian. Much appreciated. Okay. We've got a mover for this, which is page 333. We'll take items 1 through 7 as a block. Could I get a seconder, please? Terry, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, Sian. Thank you, Ed, Leslie and Eric. Good to see you. Sian, I am going to propose that councillors break for lunch now, and I know that you are going to be with us for the Granny Flats discussion.
Yes, yeah.
I think councillors will have some questions,
Sure.
and I want to allow us a bit of time to work through this. Are you comfortable that we take a break and then come back to that after lunch?
Yep.
Okay, so we're looking
totally
at
fine.
12:35 is coming back. Thank you. Councillor Gottlieb and those online, 12:35 for return from lunch. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.